Oh, wow. I'm live somehow. It's the Nazarite bringing you Hebrew lore from days of yore. Well, first of all, this is going to be, I think, a relatively short one because I had a natural awakening today, quite literally, right? I woke up at around 5 a.m. when usually I wake up between 6:15, 6:20 something with the alarm, but I woke up at 5. Tried to go back to sleep, could not, got up, had a nice early morning shower. I even put conditioner in my hair this morning, and which I do only once every so often. And why am I telling you this? Because I'm tired, that's why. So it's going to be, I think, a very short one. I want to conclude the chat from last Wednesday that I said I will do tonight. And I want to welcome the new moon. We have 2 days of Rosh Chodesh, 2 days of a new moon, right? Tomorrow is the end of the month of Shvat. Tomorrow night is the new moon with the first of Adar, the first of two Adars. There are 2 months of Adar this year. Traditionally, each month of the year corresponds with one of the tribes of the Hebrew people, and there are months where there are 13, there are years when there are 13 months, and the 13th month, Adar number 2, Adar Bet, is traditionally with the tribe of Levi. It only happens once every few years or so. So that's what's going to happen this year, and I'm excited for this year's Adar Bet, right? The second Adar, but first it's going to be Adar Aleph, and that's tomorrow night. So we have a new moon coming. A new moon is always a wonderful thing as far as I'm concerned. It's a time of atonement according to the Torah. If I'm not mistaken, the horns right at the temple would also be put into use. If I'm not mistaken, yes, the Kohanim, right? The priests would blow the horns. Let's dive into the chat, and I'll read a comment or two that came in the last couple of days, and then I think I'll call it a night. So let's see. I don't exactly remember where I was, but okay, so now, okay, I kind of do remember. All right. So Spooky said, reminds me, well, so we were talking about wine and the Nazarite ship, and Spooky said, reminds me of how Yeshua at one point is said to have stopped drinking wine until the kingdom of heaven is established on earth. I think that's the comment where I kind of left off. And there are some people say that Yeshua took a Nazarite's vow then. Some people say he took it earlier. I don't know. Again, I don't know the New Testament very well. I'm not versed in it. I know that Yeshua isn't, as far as I know, known as a Nazarite, but if there was a kind of allusion to the Nazarite vow, it would have been there. And well, let's leave it at that. But I don't know if he was or wasn't a Nazarite. There is a chance that he was, and if it was one of the last things that he did, if he did indeed exist and he died later during the Passover, that I think was done during that Last Supper, right? Leila Seder, the time of the eating of the Passover lamb. And he said that he won't drink wine. If I recall from the one time that I read it, that's what happened there. So let's see. Speaking of which, the user, Jesus said, I'm too late. Yeah, I was just signing off then. Spooky said, Jonathan, if God allows you to drink wine, grapes in the new Eden, heaven, those are not the same thing, but let's keep going there, then will you? Well, I think that like many things having to do with the world to come and with going back to Eden and partaking of the tree of life, and again, you can think of it actually, you can think of it conceptually, philosophically, spiritually, however it goes down, I don't know. But that I do believe will be that world to come, right? When we partake of the tree of life. If we partake of the tree of life, in the world to come, our sages say that there is no eating and drinking, and there is none of that physicality. They say, at least one or two of them, if not more, say that the world to come will be the righteous sitting and learning Torah, right? No, there was sitting, and there are crowns upon their heads, and they are basking in the light of what would it be? And are basking in the glory or the light or the splendor of the Shekhinah, of the divine feminine presence. And some people say that the crown on their head, as we know, Eshet Chai Lateret Ba'ala, the crown on the head is actually the divine feminine presence. And the divine feminine, which is closely associated with Malchut, speaking of a new moon, the divine feminine presence is associated with Malchut, which is the lowest sphira, the lowest of the 10 sphirot. But actually, it was meant to be, so to speak, it was meant to be that Malchut would be above, and that the male Yesod would be the last one. So it's a kind of coming to where it was meant to be, if you will. Only this time, that's why it's the world to come. Only this time it will be due to our actions, right? And the goodness and the righteousness and the truth and the justice that we put into this world will usher in that world to come. So if we think of grapes as something which the Nazarite is supposed to abstain from because it's the root, let's say, of Gvura, of the left hand, the left side, Din as it's known, which in the current 10 sfirot is represented, right? It corresponds with limitation or with wrath, with strength, and with limitation. Then that won't be the case anymore. And so I'm inclined to say that there will be no eating and drinking. And if there will be eating and drinking, then yes, I think I would, since the Nazariteship pertains to this world. More, right, more because the Nazarite who is dead doesn't partake of any kind of commandments and doesn't adhere to any kind of commandments, because a dead Nazarite is no longer a Nazarite. They are dead. Just dead. All right, let's see. Muzzy Star says spooky, right? So we were talking at the time about music that evokes, let's say, feminine energy. We were talking about someone in the chat, I don't remember who, was talking about how can I cultivate the more feminine side of me, right? As a man, right? As a masculine, how do I cultivate that feminine side of myself? Now, in the Hebrew faith, right, we have the different commandments having to do with aseh velo ta'aseh, thou shalt and thou shalt not, and those correspond with male and female, with the right and the left, and that whole thing, and something along those lines, right? Where we're with Torah being down the middle pillar, represented as Tiferet, the Torah and the commandments allow us to take from the male and the female, the yin and the yang, and right, the positive and negative, thou shalt not, and put them together there, right down the middle from Keter to Malchut, and be able to cultivate the divine feminine and masculine within ourselves. And so music, being a very spiritual thing in essence, yeah, let's just say that it has that capacity of evoking, of awakening certain vibrations, certain energies. And if it's a holy nigun, if it's a holy melody, let's say a sacred melody, or certain words in the Psalms and in other things, that it would actually be something which allows divine influence to come, right? Male and female alike. So he says Mazistar, which I don't know that well, but the things that I have heard from that band are really, really good. I didn't give them enough of a shot. Not that I'm saying anything against that band. All right, let's see. Little Andre said to Robert, other Nazarites mentioned in Acts 21 as well, but not by name. So my my companions, my colleagues, and I at work, we have a daily. We try to have it daily, but sometimes it's not daily. Learning. Right now, we're almost at the end of the book of Judges of Shoftim, and today we arrived right at the point where the story of Samson is about to begin. Hopefully, we'll start reading it soon. Samson is, of course, the only one actually mentioned by the name of Nazarite. Others were alluded to, there are hints to it, but mentioned as Nazarite, as Nazir Elohim. That's Shimshon, that's Samson. Oregon Freebird said, was Samson's mother told to eat no fermented thing? I seem to remember something about that. No fermented thing would be a lot, even cheese, kimchi, kombucha, sauerkraut, tempeh, etc. So no, that is not the way it went down. She was told to abstain from wine and strong drink. Now, strong drink biblically pertains to things of the grapevine, or things where the fruit of the grapevine is incorporated into it, which is why, technically speaking, the Nazarite back then, nowadays, supposed to abstain from anything that comes from the fruit of the vine, right, of the grapevine, but not other things, not other things that are, let's say, grains or right other sort of produce. So no, as far as I can remember, that's not what it was. It was unholy things, right? Unclean things, not fermented things. Fermentation does not disqualify it for a Nazarite, and I believe that fermentation alone did not disqualify it for the wife of Manoach, Samson's mother. The user, Jesus, says, slow dive if you like Mazzy. Slow dive. Okay, I don't know if I've heard that one. I probably did, and I just don't know that that's the name of it, but I guess we'll see. Spooky says, "Wow, interesting. I had heard." Wait, Pinky, you wanna be let out? No, not yet. Okay, she might want to be let out soon. Um, wow, interesting. I heard John the Baptist was an Essene connected to them. Was he a Nazarite, Robert, or little Andre? So we'll see if they answered by the time I had to leave. I'm not sure. Little Andre said, "By the way," nah, I'll let her out. Give me a sec. Okay, out you go, little doodle. Bye bye. Where was I? By the way, little Andre said, "Shalom, Karen. What's what you mentioned earlier?" So it was she mentioned something about seaweed, and I didn't quite understand that either. Is it supposed to be what or wet or I don't know what it was? Eat. I see. She says it later. Okay, so let's see. I'll get there soon. Jesus says it's probably too late, but I wanted to ask if you would look up the etymology of God in your thoughts, of course. So look, God is a word in English. English comes from all kinds of other languages. Some of them rather ancient. I mean, relatively maybe not, however you want to take it. But no, it's Gott, right, or Gut, which is I'm assuming it's like German or Norse or something. Oh, come on, Pinky Lou, in and out and in and out. Come on now. Okay, I'll just let her be. So, as for the etymology of God and my thoughts, I think that if it's not I mean, I love languages and you could look into it all the way back, but I consider only Hebrew and to some degree Aramaic to have, for me personally, just personally, to have a degree of sacredness. And when you can worship God and talk to God in any language, and we are meant, I believe, to talk to God in our own mother tongue, right? But as for the etymology of words and things to do with the root of words and things of that nature, my thoughts would be whatever it is, even if it has some sort of source that's very nice and a nice etymology, sort of conceptually, the way that that we arrived at God. I'm thinking it wouldn't be. I will look into it. I don't know how much I will be able to understand of it. These old languages. All I know is right Hebrew and Aramaic. Those are my go-tos, if you will. But I might do that. So thanks for doing that. Oh, I see, little Andre. I think you meant eat. So okay, yeah. So you meant wet or eat. So I'm thinking she meant eat, and that's what I saw just now. Oregon Freebird said, Warren Farrell, PhD, Dr. Farrell, yes, has a new book called The Boy Crisis. So that's not new. That's a few years old, if I'm not mistaken. He gave a wonderful TED Talk at the time or around that time, which I watched. He spoke to Dr. Jordan Peterson, had a dialogue with him, which I also watched. Now, I about this boy crisis thing. Well, first I'll finish the comment. I watched an interview and he made a great analysis of the feminine and masculine and the importance of both. Yes, there is a wonderful significance to both. This thing with the boy crisis, it kind of went over my head. First of all, I'm a child of the 80s and the 90s, right? I was born in the early 80s. Second, I was born to parents who moved from America to Israel. And third, I was born to a religious household, which means, and I had three brothers. So this I knew what it meant to be a man from very early on. What it meant to be a man is to be a mensch, which is man, right? Man in Yiddish. What it meant to be a mensch is to be good, to be a good person, to be kind, right? Not necessarily to be a nice guy, to be a kind guy, to be a gentleman. Now, my parents may have not actually put it to me as such, but they did not as in to be a gentleman. They said, be a good person. That that's what they cared about more than a lot, let's put it that way. And it also coincided with what Torah teaches. And we had a lot of Torah in the home and a lot of different commandments and rituals and traditions that we upheld and continue to uphold, right? My parents in the home. And I grew into a household where being a man in some things, well, these are things I went over with my therapist, years ago, and I still need to continue going over them. But as far as I was concerned, to be a man means when you become bar mitzvah, when you're 13 and you take on the yoke of Torah and commandments, that's what it means to be a man, to carry a burden. Again, my parents didn't necessarily phrase it as such, but they conveyed it to us through their everyday interaction, through their being, through Shabbos, festivals, The fact that I went to a religious school had a lot of drawbacks, but it had a lot of positive things too. And one of them was that to be a man meant to be a good person, first and foremost. And as for other things on what is it that constitutes manhood and all that, that was already conveyed to me through the Torah, through the Tanakh. So I didn't have a crisis first because I grew up in a two-parent household and I had a father who was very much and still is very much a man. So I didn't have any, and I had an older brother, again, very much a man, and both of them stressed right, conveyed it through action, right, not necessarily through talking tos, through action. I saw that to be a good person is the most important thing, and from what I've gathered, especially through people like Dr. Farrell and different things that I've listened to and heard and read over the years, interviews and TED Talks and whatever and podcasts, there really is a terrible crisis with such terms as toxic masculinity being thrown around like it's nothing, when in fact it's I don't think it's necessarily the case. Nobody would argue that men and women are capable of doing terrible things. But what makes you a man and a woman of honor and of God, if you are so inclined, is to be a good man, a good woman. And for me, growing up in a religious household in Israel, it was quite clear. You want to know what that is? Do you want to know what being a good man is? Do you want to know what being a good woman is? Go look to the Bible, look to the Torah, see what to do and what not to do. Learn from the mistakes of your forefathers and be able to rectify them within yourself going forward. That's something that was displayed to me, right, every single day. That's what being a man is. And so that crisis, while I do have my own crises as a man and somebody who tries to incorporate masculine and feminine things into my life, there's no, I have no shortage of shortcomings, but I do know what it means to be a man, even if I don't exactly live up to it, right? I grew up with a father, an older brother, and well, everything that I've said thus far. It is important. Both of them are important, and I ought to be cultivating both of them. So, Karen said to eat. Right. Karen said eat, not what. Okay, that's cool. Spooky said check out Trespassers, William. I like their songs Different Stars and Lie in the Sound. Jesus, right? He said to the user, which replied, thanks, I'll check them out, and maybe I will check them out too. Let's see. Karen said, oh, sauerkraut is richtig sur, right? So in German or Dutch or is it Afrikaans? I don't even know. But I never liked sauerkraut, even when I used to eat, before veganism, before vegetarianism. I never liked sauerkraut. Um, what is it? Is it well, it's cabbage, right? It's purple, and with is it mayonnaise? I don't remember what it incorporates. What I don't remember precisely what it is, but I don't like it. I just don't. Oregon Freebird said, I even made a typo out of a typo. Sheesh, I should just listen today. Well, I was about to leave, so, but I suppose, yeah, that was after an hour and a half of talking. No, said Jesus, notice me, Sifu. Well, I'm nobody's Sifu, but I'm honored that you would consider me one. Little Andre said to Karen, I love the female vibes, feminine vibes. Hit the like button, said Robert. No, said Spooky. No, meaning like a come on in Yiddish and in Hebrew. No, it can mean so many different things depending on the context. Spooky, what's new, says Little Andre. Is Jonathan signing off now? So yes, I was signing off back then, right at the time. I signed off shortly after that, but there are a few more comments there, and I'll try and get through them now before I head over there. Oh, just a funny way of saying no. I was copying Robert. Oh, okay. So there's nu and there's no, two different things. Little Andre said to Karen, by the way, Jonathan told me it's a draw. Right. So little Andre had had a little joke about who would be the champion of the cherry pickers. Right. So it was between himself and myself and Oregon Freebird, right, and Karen, and it's a draw. So it's a draw between you guys. I took myself out of the running, but I do cherry pick everything and apologize for nothing, except for things I feel I need to apologize for. Spooky said, my friend and I used to say no and yes to each other. So yeah, it's yes, right? Yes and no. What's that? Little Andre says, have you seen the Yas Cat? I haven't seen the Yas Cat. Is that a meme? Is it a video? Who knows? So many things are going over my head. The vegan Nazarite said, I don't think Shaul or Yeshua were Nazirs, but that's just my take. Right, and many people would agree with the vegan Nazarite that they weren't, but some people see in different verses in the New Testament and they say, oh, yes, yes, they were. You can see it here and there. Uh, Robert says Paul went to the temple to cut his hair. Right, case in point. Some people see that as a sign that he ended his Nazarite vow. Vegan for the win. That's right, veganism, veganism. I'm not a militant vegan, but I definitely appreciate those who are willing to go that distance, if you will. Some might consider it a very honorable thing. Depends how you go about it. You can be vegan and still be an asshole. Obviously, there are many of us and many assholes, and I'm an asshole too. I love this stream, said Spooky. I'm here 2 times apparently, said Jesus, and that is when I was, and that's when I left. That's when I left off. Okay, soon I'll go to the chat if anything is ongoing now. I don't know, I'm on a different tab, right? I'm reading last week's chat. But now, Crispy Films commented yesterday regarding dreadlocks as a spiritual antenna. He said, what I've noticed about freeform, right, freeform dreads, is that they are formed randomly, which is, of course, just the course. As water flows or wind blows, energy pulsates through such fractal forms. How very poetic of Crispy Films. And indeed, it really is. Freeforming is something, I mean, sure, you can argue semi-freeform, freeform, this, that, you do separate, you don't separate, to each his and her own, but definitely if you let the hair just do its thing and do not hinder the process or use too much, or manipulate it too much or do whatever you want to it, if you just let it be, it will lock up in its own very unique and specific and personal way, which is what I love about freeforming. It means that you won't have two dreads that are the same, and you won't have two heads of dreads that are the same, much like fingerprints, right? They are very, very unique. Now, I suppose you could say that if you go on the molecular level or the cellular level or whatever, you could say that about each and every one of us and every fiber of our being different. But some people write with DNA and all that and replicates and blah, blah, blah. But the way that the hair locks up is so unique, and it's so wonderful to see more and more people getting into free forming. And like I said, I'm not a militant. If people want to make dreads, they can make them. They want to grow dreads, they can grow them. It's a lovely thing. And nobody can claim ownership of dreads, despite people out there saying, oh no, it's appropriating this or that, or come on. Freeform dreads belong to humankind. The end. That's it. There's no argument there. You cannot debate the fact. It's a fact. You cannot debate it that freeform locks just grow like that. They just grow like that, which is everybody, if they stop combing and they stop manipulating their hair. That's what will happen. Let's see. Little Andre said regarding the Wednesday Q&A, he asked, or he was asked, I don't remember who asked him, if he believes that in the Garden of Eden, right, we were discussing written Torah and oral Torah, and he was asked at the time, is the oral Torah something that was given in written form to Adam back in Eden? To which he answered a couple of days later, or a couple of days ago, he answered, no, it was not. It was obviously orally, as the written Torah itself says about the commandment not to eat the tree of knowledge. And after that, the other commandments they received after being kicked out of the garden, I would presume were passed down orally to Noach Avinu, Noach, our father, and onwards. I personally, says little Andre, even believe that an oral tradition is the best way to preserve something among a people, like a big nation of 3 million people, where nobody can change what's being passed down because there will always be others who will know it's the truth, whereas with written form, it can always be changed. Yes, and this is in part what was so imperfect and unwanted about writing down the oral traditions. And I've spoken of this many, many times. Every time that the issue of oral Torah, written Torah comes up, I speak of it, so I won't do it now. But that was little Andre's answer. He also said, hey, I eat tuna on Shabbat a lot as well, because I mentioned that back when I was tapering off from animal products, One thing that I kept for a while was eating tuna fish on Shabbos morning during the second meal. It meant a lot to me, and it's one of the last things I gave up before I went complete vegetarian. That's one of the last things I gave up before going vegan. Right, I was vegetarian for a while, and the last thing I gave up was eating tuna fish on Saturday morning during the second meal. There's nothing quite like a slice of challah, right? A challah bread with fresh hummus, with tuna, a slice of tomato, some lettuce, olive oil. Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect. I don't do it anymore, but it's perfect. I looked forward to it every Shabbat, and he said I looked forward to it too. All right, let's move on to, where are we? We're over here. Hi. Hello. Hi, people. Was I not in the frame? Was I? I guess I was in the frame. All right, let's see. Shalom Gever, although he wrote Giver. Gever means man. Shalom Gever to you. Hello, Robert. Hello, Oregon Freebird. Hi, good to see you. Rosh Chodesh, what is that? Well, Rosh Chodesh literally means the beginning of the month. A new moon, in other words. Rosh Chodesh, what is that? And I don't know if this is true, but they say women are spiritually connected to the moon. Have you heard of that? So I've spoken of the connection between the moon and the divine feminine presence many times. In olden days, these days of Rosh Chodesh, during the day until the midday, the females, the women, would have a day of rest, a half day of rest, because of their connection to the moon. The moon is also represented, right? The female cycle of menstruation, right, every month, right, with the moon. This idea of the feminine growing and of ebbing and flowing, right, of waxing and waning. And we all have that. We all live in a circular, cyclic sort of existence, but the feminine is even more so that way, because there is a well, let's put it that way. There's a deep connection between the feminine and the moon. There's a deep connection between the feminine and Malchut, and this idea of sanctifying the new moon, and sanctifying, right, not just sanctifying the Rosh Chodesh, not just the beginning of the moon, but the throughout the first 10 days of the moon, there's what's called a Kiddush Levana, sanctifying of the moon, which is done. The sanctifying of the Rosh Chodesh was done in Jerusalem. When somebody would witness the new moon, you needed at least two witnesses to show up at the hall of the Great Court, at Beit Yazek, as it's known. And there, the court there would say, the leader, right, the Av Beit Din, he would say sacred or mekudash, and the people would echo it, mekudash, mekudash, holy, holy, or sanctified, sanctified. And then the reason why they sanctified the first of the moon is because they needed to know when certain holidays were to be observed, and they needed to know when, with 6 different months, they would send out people to the diaspora to tell them, hey, the new moon happened on this day. And so the people in Israel and the people in Babylon and in the rest of the diaspora would celebrate the holidays together in different locations, because the shluchim, the messengers, the emissaries would be sent out from Jerusalem to hail the new moon, right, to give them news of the new moon 6 times out of the year. So there's a deep connection there. I've spoken of it many times. And well, I think, I mean, I spoke of it right now in the beginning of this video, so I won't go through it again, but there's a ton, whether you look at it halachically, whether you look at it kabbalistically, right, whether you look at it in what used to go on in the temple, and the sacrifices and the horns that would blow, and the fact that there's what's called Hallel, which is a collection of psalms that are recited, and there's a half, there's a full. It's so much, so much. There's also the idea of the eclipse, right? A moon being eclipsed, and that whole thing. Despite it being a normal phenomenon, these there's, how shall I put it? You're supposed to seize the day. Let's put it that way. So let's see. So yeah, there's a deep connection, very spiritually connected and physically connected, right, with their own ebb and flow. Oregon says that is, oh, coleslaw. That's right. That's coleslaw, not sauerkraut. My mistake. That's coleslaw, which is just fermented cabbage and salt. Yeah, I never dug it either way. I tried coleslaw when I used to eat mayonnaise. Did not like it. I tried fermented cabbage, right, sauerkraut. Did not like it. It's just not my thing. Just not my thing. Little Andre says, Shalom, shalom. Hello, good chodesh to you. Before I forget again, when is it Talk Like a Pirate Day? Again, I think it's the 19th of September. the 17th or 19th of September, if I'm not mistaken. Look it up. Talk like a pirate day when, yo ho ho and all that. Robert Harrison said, "Oh, by the way, Talk Like a Pirate Day is a holiday for the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster and the Pastafarians. I am, of course, a very, very well. I'm a pious Pastafarian. I'll tell you that. I love the idea of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. I love the way that it sort of mocks organized religion." In the same but different way that Satanism, modern day Satanism, does it, right, with the Church of Satan. I love the way that it takes things and it just points a mirror in front of organized religion and says, "Okay, now what do you say?" And there was a very famous case, and I'm assuming it's still being done, where they wear what is it, a colander or a strainer, right? They wear it on their heads, and there was a person who asserted his religious right to wear a colander, a spaghetti strainer on his head to take his DMV photo, right? At some point, and I thought that was gorgeous. It's just taking those laws and saying, "Okay, I can do it too." It's like, eh. So yeah, yeah, his noodly appendage, right? We should all be touched by the noodly appendages of the flying spaghetti monster. Oh, oh, blessed be the flying spaghetti monster. Let's see. Robert Harrison said, and Paul after this tarried And Paul after this tarried there yet a good while. I'm assuming he's quoting the New Testament here. And then took his leave of brethren, and sailed thence to Syria, and with him Priscilla and Aquila, having shorn his head in where? Chechner? For he had a vow, Acts 18:18, just for people wanting what wanting was about Paul and a vow. So people wandering. I'm assuming you want the right wondering. Okay. So yeah, so again, some people, I don't follow the New Testament. I don't follow Yeshua. I don't follow Paul, as someone who follows this channel might know. But those who do, some say that he was a Nazarite, some say he was not a Nazarite, and they cite verses like this. So let's see. Robert says, no, Little Andre says, and will you be talking like a pirate the whole broadcast? Again, better hope it's on a Friday. Interestingly, Radiohead's first band name was on a Friday. It was the only day they could practice. They had to change it though because that was, they asked them to change it because on a Friday, on a Wednesday might cause confusion when you see it on a poster. Let's see. Well, yeah, years ago, I used to properly celebrate Talk Like a Pirate Day, and it was fun. Yes, it was good times. But I don't have ale or meat, so all I have is me wench. But that's still pirate enough for me. Did you escape from prison? Hey, yeah, California. Hi, are you actually in California? Please do tell if you're still around. So let's see. No, I did not escape from prison. Thankfully, I've never been to prison or a jail or a holding cell. I'm not ruling it out happening in the future. I hope it doesn't, but I like my freedoms. I don't want to be deemed, that I need to be taken away from society for any amount of time. I do that enough on my own. I take myself away from society at times. So let's see. I did not escape from prison. Hey, look at that. The YouTube algorithm took me here. Okay. Well, I'll tell you, yeah, California, it's very auspicious that you should be here. Are you actually in California? I await your reply. Let's see. Little Andre says, Lisa and I request you do such a video. I'm asking on behalf of Lisa because I know she liked that video of yours as well. Well, it was a very short video. I don't even remember what I was saying there. Talk Like a Pirate Day 3 years ago. That's when I recorded that. She thought it was funny as well. Yes, obviously, it's all in good. It's all in good humor, in jocularity. Yeah, California. How did you know? Well, you are in California, man. So is my brother. I know it's a very vast, vast state, but if you run into him, do say hi. And yeah, California. I'm glad that the YouTube algorithm took you here. So this is a channel that has to do with faith, spirituality, religion, and self-development. How do you feel about these terms? Do let us know. We are interested. The people here in the chat and I want to know how you're feeling, how you doing. All right. How is it in California? I mean, I've seen photos. I've never been to the West Coast. I've seen photos. It looks gorgeous, man. It looks seriously gorgeous. I get my brother sends me photos and videos, and just some scenery there is just breathtaking, really wonderful. So let's see. Yeah, California, asks little Andre, do you know the Californian Viking? Well, I don't know them, but maybe he does. Oh, he knows nothing. Okay, so he doesn't know about the Viking. Do let us know. Oregon Freebird. Oh, so okay, so Oregon Freebird says, I know we all talk existentially about implementing the masculine and feminine in our lives, but when you are faced with it in real life situation, it is no easy task. Well, I suppose that has to do a lot with your definition of masculine and feminine, because there are the traditional constructionist views of what constitutes feminine and masculine in the way that we, it's a performance, it's a construct, it's a whatever you want to call it. But then there are things that have to do with actual, let's say, biology, dare I say, and hormones, right? The estrogen, the testosterone affect us. Incorporating the yin and the yang and the yang and the yin is very crucial, so you know what to employ when. But I agree, it's probably, and I know this from experience, very difficult to do it when the chips are down and it's time to be feminine or masculine, right? Respectively. It's just something that's difficult to do. I think that, like the Tao Te Ching says, and I've mentioned it, if we are open enough and we keep our vessel empty, we will always be full. And we will be able to not have the hubris, right? The pride to know that, oh, I know what to do now, but to be able to take it as it comes and know how to react intuitively, right? Instinctively. And in order to do that, we need to take care not to pathologize our masculine and feminine beings. You know what I mean? Maybe you don't know what I know what I mean as far as I'm concerned. Do you know what do you know how you do it? But yeah, Karen, it really, really is very difficult to pull off. I agree. Little Andre says, by the way, if the vegan Nazarite is in the house again, I'm not sure if he is. He probably would have said hi. I just want to say beforehand that I skipped and watched that short part in his video, and see why he thinks Paul was not a Nazarite, but I still think he was, even if he didn't say so himself. Okay, well, maybe if he sees this video, maybe he'll have something to say about that. Sean Hurwitz in the California his house. Yes, yes, he is my man, my man, my main man, my brother, my elder. Speaking right, so I was speaking of being a man, right? And definitely, my brother taught me a lot about being a man, and about what to do and what not to do, as I see it. So let's see. HN, is there any more snow in Israel? Oh no, today. I mean, look, there's none of it is proper, fresh fallen snow. It's all gooky and yucky and sloshy, if there is any, and I don't think that there is anymore. I mean, this morning on my way to work, I saw a blob, a dark, blob that was in the middle of the street. But other than that, no, no more. Today, this morning, the last of it, I'm sure, thawed out during the day. I'm sure of it. Robert says, "Me and my woman are getting over." Ooh, pardon me. Me and my woman are getting over COVID for the second time. Ay, 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 ay. Refuah shlema, as we say in Hebrew, a quick and speedy recovery. I thankfully, I didn't get COVID. And this Omicron variant is all around us. I thankfully did not catch it. Neither did anyone over here in this household. And I hope we will be able to just breeze on by without catching it. I hear it's very, very contagious. But so far, so good. We're all negative. So wait, let's see. All right, I think that we're done. Look at this. I wanted it to be short, and it's almost 40 minutes. You see what happens? You see, for those of you who are arriving now and who missed what I said in the first few seconds, and I don't think anybody was here the first few seconds, I woke up this morning at 5 a.m. without an alarm, just on my own. I went to sleep very early. I didn't expect to wake up at 5, but I'm very tired. And so when I began this broadcast, I should have known better. When I began the broadcast, I said that it's going to be a very short one, probably a short one, but as is our want and our thing, it's definitely not short with 40 minutes, going on 40 minutes here. All right, let's see. Let's see if I missed anything. If not, I'm just going to say goodbye. Um, okay. So, you know what? There are a couple of more comments, but I'll leave well enough alone. And I think I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you all for being here with me. Let's have a wonderful new moon, right? So it's 2 days this year. Well, this time. Tomorrow is the last month of Shvat. Tomorrow night begins the first of Adar, right? The first day of the first Adar, out of two Adars. It's going to be a wonderful moon. On that note, I want to say goodbye. Thank you for joining me. Yeah, California. I hope you come and see us again here. It's fun having you. It's fun having people randomly show up, and I appreciate it. Thank you for your time, your kind attention. I do not take it for granted. I hope that I'll be able to see you on Wednesday for more chats and more schmats and more rants and more blah blah blahs. Hopefully, I will be less tired, but as you know, as it's over here even so. Oh, wait. Little Andre says, Derech Hagav, by the way, I had an idea. What if you put a mask on Daniel or let his mom completely paint equaling disguise his face, which she does very well, by the way. Well, she is a professional makeup artist. Then he can join the broadcast in the holidays, of course. What do you mean the holidays? Oh, the holiday when it's not a school night. You know what, man? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. Because he said I don't care about my privacy. I said, dude, you will. You definitely will. Let's give it a few years. You're gonna care plenty about your privacy, and you won't want people looking this up. Trust me. So I'm looking out for him. I'm really looking out for my kids. I want to keep their privacy. Lila Tov, Pinky Winky. She was just barking. All right. For the third time, good night and thank you. Let's all have a blessed new moon, a time of atonement, a time of, well, rejuvenation. Let's take those positive, feminine, divine energies, incorporate them so we will be able to be more open, more receiving, and be able to be like the valley, right? Between the two mountains, on the way from great things, going to great things, seeing, and that will be good people and learn how to do well and how to employ that masculine and feminine side in due season, in due time, in good faith. Laila Tov.